Well, hello again, everybody, and thank you for connecting with us for our midweek devotions here at Resegornis Church. It is Wednesday, June the 24th, and as we've been spending a lot of time in the book of Proverbs lately, the proverb that I want to share with you is one that I was thinking about in light of all the graduation activities that have been going on during the past couple of weeks in our various communities, and some of which have been happening in my own home. Because for those who didn't know, our baby girl Hannah, the last of our three children to come up through grade school, is one of those graduating students who get to be remembered as part of the Corona class of 2020, the class where everything was canceled. The final days of school were canceled. The big graduation ceremony that they'd normally have was canceled. The prom with all that goes along with that. Safe grad. And just a word of advice to anybody who knows someone who's graduating this year or who has graduated this year. Speaking from experience, I would just suggest to you that you resist the urge to tell them that at least their grad year is going to be memorable. I said that myself a few times in the beginning until I was quite rightly reminded, Dad, it's my high school graduation. It was going to be memorable anyway. And this has been a kind of an aside, but I do need to say that from my perspective at least, people have gotten creative and made it a good year just the same. The school staff in particular, and I can only speak for Oromocto High School, but I understand this is true in other schools as well. They dug really deep and they put together a graduation experience for the students that had some of them saying at the end, the students that is, that they wouldn't trade it in for the old format at this point anyway. And so we've had a busy graduation week in our home, as I said, which is probably why I had these young adults in mind in particular when I was reading in Proverbs 10 again this week. Because there's something there in verse 5 that I found kind of interesting. And it says this. It says, a wise youth harvests in the summer, but one who sleeps during harvest is a disgrace. A wise youth harvests in the summer, but one who sleeps during harvest is a disgrace. Which, by the way, that's not intended, certainly not intended by me to be unduly pressuring for anybody. What you need to understand is that it is a proverb. And as a proverb in general is intended to make a single point by setting up these contrasting scenarios. And the contrasting scenario that Solomon sets up here is centered around the season of harvest. In the time and place that he was living in, apparently summer represented a time when things that grew needed to be picked. Sometime before that, the planting happened, presumably. In between those two things where there was watering and tending that needed to happen. But when summer came and the crops were fully ripened, the opportunity was right then to pick the fruit and get the best yield, both for that day as well as for down the road. And so Solomon comes up with this proverb based on this particular scenario. He says a wise youth, or a wise person really, because this could apply to anybody, a wise youth harvests in the summer, but one who sleeps during harvest is a disgrace. He's basically saying, you know what, there are at least a couple of different kinds of responses that people have to harvest opportunities in their lives. He says some people are more aware and they get to work in order to make the most of the opportunity that they've been given. But then there are other people who sleep through that same opportunity and miss it altogether. And while I was thinking about graduates in particular myself, because of the pivotal moment leaving public school represents, and Solomon obviously had younger people in mind as well, it's a truth that, again, applies to all of us. And there are a few implications I think that we could all do well to keep in mind that I'm just going to share with you here, mostly in bullet form. Number one, the first is that there are certain seasons in all of our lives when opportunity for personal growth and enhancement is more apparent than at other times. And that's not to say that we can't harvest at other times, but it just means that there are times in our lives when something is in front of us and God is saying to us, now is the time for you to give serious consideration to this. And maybe it's a family decision, maybe it's a career move, maybe it's some relational choice, maybe it has to do with your involvement in your local church, or maybe even your personal relationship with Jesus Christ, which I always maintain, and biblically it's true, that it is the most important decision a person can make with eternal consequences. But it's something that's being presented to you now that is calling for your attention. Then here's the second thing. Number two, just because there's an opportunity being given to you doesn't mean you have to take it. That's what free will is all about, as a matter of fact. God doesn't force his will on anyone. Number three, opportunity often involves an investment from us. Like, it isn't always handed to us on a platter, so to speak. We often have to give up something in our lives in order to receive something better. That's why some people sleep through the opportunity, because it's usually the easier option. And then finally, number four, what we do with the opportunities we are given have more of an impact than what we might think it will in the moment. Which just means to not undervalue what God might have in store to do in you and through you. Like, you are designed with a purpose, and he wants more than anything to see that purpose played out fully in your life. And so I want to just say to everyone listening here today, is there a season of harvest that you're coming into in your life right now? Do you recognize it? Is there an opportunity that is for your good and for God's glory that you need to be paying attention to? And if so, are you prepared to give it the attention that it calls for, asks for, so as not to be disgraced, as Solomon puts it, but to be named among the wise instead? That's just a little bit of food for thought for you today, everybody, and I'm going to just leave it there with you. May God lead you into the right choices, and may he be glorified in you. Thanks again for connecting with us here. Stay safe and stay faithful, and we'll see you next time.